Okay, if you think back to last week, we learned how to take a quadratic. This is my game plan, so everybody look. Let's say x squared plus 7x plus 6. Yeah. And that factored to x plus 1, x plus 7. No, that's not right. 6. X plus 1, x plus 6. And we solved it. We said, well, we have something times something equals 0. So this or this has to be 0. So we said, all right, we're going to take each of them out, split it apart, and say, well, you need to be 0, and you need to be 0. And then we solve. So we take the 1, subtract it. Over here, we get x equals -1. We take the 6, subtract it. Over here, we get x equals -6. We solve the quadratic down to it's -1 or -6. Remember that? Okay. We're doing the same thing.
The reason it's different is because it's set equal to 0. Okay? Different than what we just got done doing. Didn't have an equal sign. Okay? So that's where your connection is.
Look at the title here. If you have a highlighter, let me change my highlighter size. We are solving quadratics still, but this time we're using what's called the square root method, or square roots. And there is a general form of a quadratic right there to let you know what the quadratic looks like. All right, everybody stay with me. How do you know when to solve by square roots? Because you can't do it every time. It's when the bx term is missing. I'm writing, you should be writing. It's when the bx term is missing. How do you know when to solve by square roots? When the bx term is missing. What does that look like? It looks like this. Ax squared plus c. But then there's another way that it can look. So let me give you an even easier way to know. So I'm doing 2 arrows here, kind of like in Cliff Notes. How do you know when to use the square root method? When there's only one x. You only have one x in the entire equation. You don't have 2. You got one of them. So if you look at this whole equation right here, how many x's do you see? It's only written one time. Look at this whole equation right here. How many x's do you see? 1. That's how you know, ooh, I'm going to solve by square roots. Okay? Everybody with me? Now, how do you do it? Well, first you isolate the squared term. When I say squared term, there's 2 scenarios here. It could be x squared, or it could be parentheses x, like, maybe plus a number squared. It could be a binomial squared, okay? There's 2 scenarios. Quit drawing. You should be writing on your paper. Put the cap on your marker. You don't need it right now. I didn't buy them for art. It's all right. After you isolate the squared term, what's the opposite of squaring? Square rooting, hence the name. You will take the square root of both sides. Now, here's the problem. When you take the square root of both sides, you will always write plus or minus on the next line. And that's because we don't really know where that number came from. It could have come from positive times positive, or it could have come from a negative times a negative. I'll show you what I mean by looking at this example here. All right, let's dive in. Here's an example. Is this a quadratic? Is this a quadratic? Yes. How do you know? Use that terminology we talked about. How do I know this is a quadratic? Close. Wow, y'all.
Because that's 2 terms that equals 0.
No, the number of terms doesn't matter. Equaling 0 doesn't matter.
Is it two? It's 2 something.
Something has to do with 2.
Is it 2? Is the exponent? The exponent is whatever something 2.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, clearly everybody needs to write this down. This 2 right here is the degree, right? Okay, that means it's a degree 2. What did we say we call polynomials of degree 2?
Quadratic.
Quadratics, because how many quad muscles do you have? 2. 2. This is a quadratic with degree 2. Okay, we are going to isolate the squared term. This is our squared term. We need it by itself. What needs to move? What needs to move to the other side? We need this by itself. The negative 64. Come on, y'all. Everybody looking at the marker board? Are you looking right here? Everybody, wake up. Hello.
Oh no.
Gotcha. What do I need to do to get x squared by itself? I need to move this to the other side. Well, come on, y'all. I mean, I'm sitting here saying, like, what do I need to do? I'm looking for someone to say, move the negative 64.
I just did that.
I know you did, but you're not. It's like, I need more people to participate. So I'm going to move this by adding it to itself. That's the inverse operation. Now, whatever I do to one side, I got to do to the other. Bring down the left side. I got x squared. The right side, what's 0 plus 64?
64.
Thank you. Now, what is the opposite of squaring? Square rooting. I'm going to square root this. That makes that cancel out. Those are opposite. Then I'm going to square root this because I have to keep it balanced. What is the square root of 64?
It's positive.
What's the square root of 64?
It's 8.
Well, is it 8 or negative 8?
It's 8.
8.
Could it be either?
No, it's always positive.
Maybe.
Wait, you need to hear
Maybe.
this before you leave, please, because this is like the equivalent of half your answers on every question. How do you get 64? What number squared, or what number times itself can give me 64, y'all?
8. Negative 8 and negative 8.
Ah, 8 works, but what else works?
Negative 8.
Negative 8 also works, doesn't it?
Yep. So does it matter? Which one
It
you
does
pick?
matter. They both work. Do we know which one they used? Nope. So we have to say, hey, it could be 8 or it could be negative 8. So you write positive, negative 8. Now, it can be written, let's see, it says can write answer as. You can write it as positive, negative 8. Or you could say, hey, the answers are negative 8 and 8. Remember, this is our solution set. This is not a coordinate point. That's our solution set. If you leave out the positive, negative, are you wrong?
Yeah.
Yep, half your answers.
What's it called? Is it just called?
Interruption. Students, if you're interested in being on the track and field team, there is an informational meeting for track and field today in the cafeteria at 2:20. So you need to go to the cafeteria at 2:20 in order, if you're interested in track and field. Thank you.
Great question. What'd you say?
Is is it just called a positive, negative?
Yeah, you can say positive, negative, or you could say plus or minus. Some people say plus or minus. Yeah. All right, I need y'all to try number 1, please. Try number 1. Watch. We need to get x squared by itself. This is our squared term. What needs to move?
Hold on, this number's a decimal.
We're going to move 81. Then you're going to have to break the radical down. So we have x squared equals 81. Can y'all quit talking? What's the opposite of squared?
Square root.
Square root. Those cancel. Square root. Hey, what's the square root of 81?
9.
If I'm solving, do I
Positive,
know?
negative 9.
Thank you. We don't know which 9 it came from.
What the heck?
We don't know which 9 it came. Please look at number 2. The squared term is, guys in the front, listen. The squared term is this right here. 2x squared. We need to get it by itself. So what do I need to move? First,
Negative 200.
I need to move the negative 200 by positive 200 to the other side. Are y'all listening?
I am.
Okay. 2x squared equals, so I get 200. Hope you're writing this down. This one's slightly different because we don't have just x squared. We have 2x squared. We need the 2 to go away. How's it attached? We need to divide it. We're going to divide by 2 to make that go away. Divide by 2. So we have x squared equals 100. Now we're ready to square root both sides. This will cancel. What is the square root of 100? If I'm solving, y'all. No. Whoa.
10.
But I'm solving, so it's not 10, it's...
You know what I did? Like, the exact same answer.
Positive, negative 10.
This Holcombe.
What, sweetie?
You know what I did? They get the exact same answer.
No.
I just square root negative 81. Or, I mean 81.
Yeah, you just have to remember positive, negative. Because your calculator's not going to give you negative 9. Your calculator thinks...
So much extra.
No, baby, you have to do this, like, to get the answer.
No, all you have to do is square root 200.
The square root of 200 is not 10. The square root of 200 is not 10. Okay, let's do this one. Is there anything that what needs to move, y'all? Y'all, come on. No squirrels in the room. Look at the board. Number 3. Y'all's inability to stay focused is concerning when you start driving. One of those blow-up things on the side of the road, the car wash thing, and y'all are going to be like... Now, does this divide nicely? No, so leave it alone.
Cannot make the meeting, please see Coach Pullen or Coach Pullen.
Stop, please.
What was that?
What's the opposite of square?
FCLA will meet this Thursday at the
Square root.
Square root.
Thank you and have a great afternoon.
How do you take the square root of a fraction? Well, really easy. You can separate them into 2 square roots. What's the square root of 25, y'all? What's the square root of 4? But what do I need to remember? Positive, negative. Your practice assignment is the 3 at the bottom, and then these 6. Woo! No, not those 6. I didn't show you that. These 3. These 3. 3 at the bottom, and then these 4. That one too. 4.